Ethan gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles burned white. He could feel his pulse drumming in his wrists, in the hollow of his throat. All that separated him from a few thousand easy dollars was the black Cadillac crawling toward the next intersection. He told himself this was the only way. Rent was 3 weeks late. His ex-wife had called that morning to say their daughter's field trip money was due, $50 he didn't have. It's just a bump, he thought. A tiny bump, a sore neck, a signed check. No one gets hurt. That's what Victor always said. No one gets hurt, except maybe you if you don't do it right. The Cadillac's brake lights flickered red in the misty afternoon drizzle. Ethan eased closer, inch by inch, pretending to fumble with the radio. He didn't dare look at the driver. If he did, maybe he'd see the truth too soon. The half-smile, the familiar face behind dark sunglasses, the man whose name sat on movie posters above titles Ethan hadn't paid to see in years. Inside the Cadillac, Johnny Depp shifted in his seat, flicked ash from a thin cigarette, and hummed something only he could hear. To him, this was just another city, another damp afternoon between meetings, lawyers, or hotel rooms where the curtains stayed closed. To Ethan, it felt like stepping off a ledge. One small push and he'd either hit pay dirt or hit something that would haunt him forever. The light turned green. The Cadillac drifted forward. Ethan's foot hovered over the brake. All he had to do was tap it. Just once. He exhaled, whispered Victor's words like a prayer. The moment came faster than Ethan expected. A horn blared somewhere behind him, distant, meaningless. His eyes locked on the glowing brake lights of the Cadillac. One heartbeat, then another. He tapped the pedal, just a feather touch, enough to make his old Ford stutter forward. Metal met metal. A dull, sick thud. Not dramatic. Not like in the movies. More like dropping a heavy box on concrete. Final, cheap, ugly. The Ford lurched. The Cadillac rocked gently, almost indifferent to the bump. For a second, Ethan sat frozen, his hands still locked on the wheel, his mind trying to catch up with what he'd just done. His neck snapped back, not much, but enough to sell the lie if anyone asked later. Enough to feel real. The Cadillac's brake lights stayed bright red. No one got out. No doors swung open. No yelling, no waving arms. Just silence and the soft patter of rain on metal. Ethan's throat felt dry as paper. He forced himself to breathe. His plan was simple. Get out, pretend to limp, trade insurance info, call Victor. Easy money. He just needed the other driver to play along, to be rich enough not to care, impatient enough to pay up fast. He killed the engine, unbuckled his seatbelt with trembling fingers. In the side mirror, he saw the Cadillac's door finally open. A figure stepped out, slim, slightly hunched, moving like someone used to the weight of cameras, crowds, secrets. Ethan shoved the door open, heart rattling in his ribs. He didn't know the name yet. Didn't see the face. Not yet. But in less than a minute, he'd wish he could slam his door shut and drive away forever. Ethan stepped out into the drizzle, the cold air biting through his cheap jacket. His shoes crunched on the wet asphalt as he forced himself to look up. The Cadillac's driver door was wide open now, and there he was. At first, it didn't register. The man looked so casual standing there, one hand on the roof, the other flicking his cigarette to the curb. Leather jacket, black boots, sunglasses that seemed ridiculous under the gray sky. There was something oddly familiar about the way he stood, relaxed but watchful, as if he knew 100 cameras could be hiding in the rain. Then the man looked at Ethan. Just a tilt of the chin, a slow slide of the sunglasses down his nose, and for a split second, those dark eyes pinned Ethan in place. It hit him like a second collision. He knew that face. Everybody did. Johnny Depp. Not just any driver. Not just some well-off businessman who'd shrug this off and call it a nuisance. Johnny freaking Depp, the man from 1,000 screens, the wild-eyed pirate, the rebel, the tabloid headline Ethan's mom still clipped out when she got bored. Ethan's mouth went dry. His mind scrambled for excuses, for some line that would make this less insane. But the words tangled behind his teeth. Johnny just stared at the dent in his bumper, then back at Ethan. His expression unreadable, not angry, not amused, just tired, maybe. Like this was one more thing to add to a day already too full. "Everything all right there, man?" Johnny said, voice low, rough around the edges. It wasn't loud, but it sliced through Ethan's panic like a knife. Ethan opened his mouth. Nothing came out. And in that moment, standing in the drizzle across from Johnny Depp, Ethan Miller realized he hadn't staged an accident. He'd stepped into a story bigger than any scam Victor had ever whispered about in the dark. Ethan's lips parted, but no words made sense. Johnny's question still hung in the air between them, simple, almost gentle, but heavy enough to make Ethan feel 10 years old, caught with a hand in the cookie jar. He forced himself to swallow. His heart thudded against his ribs like it wanted to run away without him. Yeah, sorry, man, Ethan stammered. His voice cracked in the drizzle. My brakes, I didn't see you stop so fast. Johnny tilted his head, cigarette forgotten near his boot. Rain trickled down the side of his sunglasses. Behind him, the Cadillac's hazard lights clicked a steady heartbeat that matched the pounding in Ethan's ears. Brakes? Johnny repeated. He didn't sound mad. Didn't sound surprised either. He just sounded tired, like he'd been through bigger collisions, the kind that didn't leave dents in cars but left deeper ones elsewhere. Ethan rubbed his neck, playing the part Victor had drilled into him. When the pity card looked sore, look sorry. I might have messed up my neck. Just jolted a bit. I'm really sorry, man. Johnny's gaze drifted to Ethan's old Ford, then back to him. For a heartbeat, something flickered behind those dark lenses, recognition, maybe. Or pity. Or worse, amusement. First time? Johnny asked, almost like he already knew the answer. Ethan froze. What? Johnny cracked the faintest smile, a quick flash of teeth, gone as fast as it came. You ever do this before? Ethan's chest seized up. Did he know? The rain kept falling. Traffic hissed past them. Ethan had never felt smaller in his life. He opened his mouth to lie again, but before he could, Johnny stepped closer, voice lower now, just for him. Careful who you pick to dance with, man. You never know who's in the other car. Ethan's knees nearly gave out. Ethan's breath steamed in the drizzle. Johnny's words felt like they'd been slipped under his skin, cold and sharp. Careful who you pick to dance with. Did he know? Was this some twisted game? Or was Johnny just another rich guy annoyed at a dent in his bumper? Ethan forced a shaky laugh. Too loud, too fake. Nah, man, I swear, it's just my brakes are garbage. Been meaning to get them fixed. Just bad luck, I guess. Johnny didn't smile, didn't nod. He just studied Ethan, his face calm in that movie star way that made every tiny shift feel loaded with meaning. A valet from the hotel wandered over, umbrella tucked under one arm. Is everything all right here, Mr. Depp? Mr. Depp, hearing it out loud, made Ethan's stomach twist. No more pretending he'd imagined it. No more hoping he'd mixed him up with some other cool-looking stranger. Johnny didn't take his eyes off Ethan. Yeah, we're good, Adam. Just a bump. The valet hovered, glancing from the Ford's bashed front to the Cadillac's scraped rear bumper. Should I call the police? Ethan's heart jumped into his throat. He couldn't have cops poking around. An actual report meant insurance would dig deeper. Maybe Victor's crooked lawyer could bury it, maybe not. No police. Ethan cut in, too quick. He tried to soften it with a half smile. Minor scratch. We can work it out, right? Johnny raised an eyebrow, amused maybe, or just curious. He flicked his gaze to the valet. It's fine, Adam. Give us a minute. The valet hesitated, then drifted back toward the warm glow of the lobby. For a second, it was just the two of them again. Ethan shivering, Johnny silent in the soft rain. You got insurance? Johnny asked finally. Ethan hesitated. Of course he didn't. Not real insurance. Victor had said never admit that. Yeah, sure, Ethan lied. He patted his pocket for effect, pretending to look for an imaginary card. Got it in the car. Let me grab it. Johnny didn't move. Didn't even blink. Ethan leaned halfway into his battered Ford, heart pounding so loud it drowned out the rain. His hands rummaged through the glove box, empty fast food napkins, expired registration, a cracked pair of sunglasses, but no insurance card. There never was one. Just scraps of a lie he could barely hold together. Behind him, Johnny stood by the Cadillac's bumper, one hand on the roof, the other resting in his jacket pocket like he had all day to wait. He didn't look angry. He didn't look rushed. He looked like a man who'd seen worse than a dented fender, and Ethan hated him for that calm, hated that his own lie was already crumbling under it. Ethan slammed the glove box shut the door, and forced a sheepish grin. Man, you're not gonna believe this. I must have left my insurance card at home. But listen. He stepped closer, lowering his voice like they were co-conspirators now. I'm good for it, okay? I can pay cash. Just, keep this between us. No fuss. I'll make it right. Johnny let the rain hit his face now, sunglasses pushed back onto his forehead. His eyes were dark, unreadable. A flicker of something passed through them, pity? Amusement? It twisted Ethan's gut. Cash? Johnny echoed, tasting the word like cheap whiskey. You sure about that? Ethan nodded too fast. Yeah, man. Just tell me what you want for the damage. I'll get it. I swear. Johnny reached into his pocket and pulled out a battered leather wallet. He flipped it open, thumbed through a wad of bills, nothing huge, but enough to make Ethan's throat tighten. Then Johnny looked up, locking eyes with him. You know what's funny? He said softly. I could take your cash. Walk away. Easy for both of us. Ethan forced a hopeful smile. Yeah, exactly. Clean break, right? But Johnny's mouth curved into something darker, not quite a smile, more like the hint of teeth behind a cage. Ethan felt the cold rain seeping through his collar, dripping down his spine like ice water. He tried to stand his ground, but Johnny's eyes pinned him there, patient, sharp, unblinking. For a heartbeat, Ethan wondered if this was how people felt when they realized the actor wasn't acting, that behind the smirk and sunglasses, there was a man who'd seen too many versions of the same cheap scam. He forced a laugh. It died on his lips. Look, man. I told you. It was an accident. I was distracted. Brakes are bad. That's it. Johnny tilted his head. You ever heard of honesty, Ethan? Hearing his name snapped something inside Ethan's chest. He hadn't told him. No introductions. Nothing. Yet Johnny said it like he'd read it off a file. How do you know my name? Ethan stammered. Johnny didn't answer right away. He took a drag from a fresh cigarette, flicked the lighter shut with that same movie star flourish, and exhaled a thin stream of smoke that curled in the rain. You're sloppy, man, Johnny said, almost gently. He gestured at Ethan's car, the old Ford with the back window covered in half-peeled parking permits, the bumper sticker with his kid's school name, the mail piled on the dashboard. Piece of advice, Johnny said, his voice dropping. If you're gonna play predator, don't leave your whole life out in the open. Ethan's shoulders slumped. For a moment, the street noise vanished. No passing cars. No hotel lobby behind him. Just the sound of his pulse, heavy and desperate in his ears. He felt the lie dissolving. Victor's easy promises, quick cash, no risk, no victims, all of it turning to ash under Johnny Depp's calm stare. Ethan's mouth tasted bitter. His lips trembled as he tried to salvage what was left. Look, I just needed the money, all right? Just a little help to get back on my feet. That's all. Johnny studied him like a man reading a script he'd seen too many times before. The rain came harder now, big drops tapping on metal, washing the street in silver streaks. Ethan shivered, his confession still hanging between them like a stain he couldn't scrub away. He half expected Johnny to lose it, to call the cops, drag him inside, make a scene in front of the hotel's bright glass doors. Instead, Johnny just slipped his cigarette between his lips, flicked his lighter again, and watched Ethan through the soft coil of smoke. You know what I hate most about this town? Johnny said, his voice low, like he was sharing a secret. Everybody's got to hustle. Everybody thinks the other guy won't notice. Ethan didn't know what to say. His tongue felt like sandpaper. He half wanted to run, half wanted to beg. Johnny stepped closer, close enough that Ethan could smell the smoke and leather, the faint trace of some cologne that probably cost more than his car. You got kids, Ethan? Johnny asked suddenly. The question hit like a slap. Ethan flinched. Yeah, a daughter. She's 6. Johnny's eyes softened, but only a fraction. He nodded once, slowly, like he was weighing something behind those dark eyes. You ever think what she'd say, Johnny murmured, if she knew her old man was out here pretending to break his neck for gas money? Ethan's mouth opened, closed. He wanted to explain, to say it wasn't supposed to be like this. But no words came. Johnny slipped his wallet back into his jacket. He gestured at the dent, then at Ethan's car, as if the whole mess was just a prop now. I'll make you a deal, Ethan, Johnny said, voice suddenly sharper, like the soft edge had been filed away. No cops. No insurance. No headlines. Ethan's heart jumped. He nodded too fast. Okay, yeah, thank you, man. I swear. Johnny held up a finger. Not so fast. He leaned in, so close Ethan could see the lines around his eyes, the weight behind them. You're gonna come inside. You're gonna sit with me. You're gonna tell me the truth. All of it. Ethan blinked. Inside? Johnny smirked. The grim people paid to see on screen. Yeah, inside. Warm lobby. 2 coffees. You owe me at least that much honesty. Ethan glanced at the hotel's bright doors. At the warm yellow lights inside. At the line he'd crossed and the stranger who now held the pin to rewrite the ending. He swallowed and followed Johnny Depp toward the lobby. The lobby swallowed Ethan whole, warm air, soft jazz humming from hidden speakers, the faint smell of roasted coffee and polished marble. His damp jacket dripped onto the expensive carpet as he trailed behind Johnny like a kid caught stealing candy. He half expected someone to stop him at the door, a security guard, a manager, but no one did. People nodded at Johnny. A bellboy offered a respectful smile. No one gave Ethan a second look. They settled into a quiet corner near the back, two deep leather chairs angled around a low table. A waitress came over without asking for an order. She just set down 2 coffees, black, piping hot. She called him Mr. Depp and vanished. Ethan sat stiffly, hands wrapped around the mug he didn't really want. Johnny didn't touch his coffee. He leaned back, legs crossed, watching Ethan like he was reading lines off a script only he could see. "Relax, Ethan," Johnny said finally, voice low and calm. "You look like you're waiting for the firing squad." Ethan forced a dry laugh. He tried to sip the coffee, but his hand shook so badly it splashed onto his knee. He set the mug down. "Look, I know how this looks." Johnny cut him off with a small wave of his hand. "I don't care how it looks. I care about why." Ethan stared at him. "Why what?" Johnny leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his eyes sharp now, the movie star charm stripped away, just a man who'd seen too many people try to buy luck they hadn't earned. "Why you're out here wrecking your life for a few $1,000, Johnny said. "Who put you up to it? And don't say nobody. You're not good enough at this to be doing it alone." Ethan opened his mouth, closed it again. He felt his face burn. Victor's voice in his head, "You never name names." Never. But sitting here under Johnny's stare, the cheap courage Victor sold him melted into nothing. He rubbed his palms on his jeans. It's just a friend. Said he had a way to make easy money. Said nobody got hurt." Johnny's laugh was soft but cold. "Nobody but you?" Ethan's throat tightened. A tiny part of him wanted to blame Victor, to pour it all out, the late-night calls, the promises, the desperate rent notices at home, but the words stuck. Johnny's eyes didn't blink. "You got a daughter, right?" he asked again, quieter this time. Ethan's head bobbed. "Yeah, Lila. She's 6. I just want her to be okay." Johnny leaned back, exhaled slow, a man trying not to decide too quickly what to do next. Outside, the rain kept tapping the windows. Inside, Ethan sat shivering in warm air, wondering how one lie could feel heavier than a car crash. Johnny's fingers drummed lightly on the arm of his chair. No rush, no raised voice. Just the steady, quiet rhythm that made Ethan feel like he was back in a principal's office, only this time the stakes were bigger than detention. Outside, cars hissed through the wet street. Inside, Ethan could feel sweat prickling his hairline, even though the lobby was cool and calm. He wanted to shrink into the leather chair, vanish between the piano music and the clink of glasses at the bar. Johnny leaned in. "When's the last time you told Lila the truth about what you do?" Ethan's breath caught. I do odd jobs. I drive. Ethan held his breath. "You're gonna give me a name. The man who lines your pocket. The man who told you to hit my car like I'm some easy target." Ethan's mouth opened, but Johnny raised a finger. "Look at me, Ethan." Ethan did. His eyes stung. "Tell me the name," Johnny said, soft but merciless. "Or lose everything else that matters." Ethan's lips trembled around the word that would break him and maybe save him. "Victor." For a second, the name just hung there between them, Victor. It tasted like rust in Ethan's mouth, like betrayal, like the last match going out in the dark. Johnny didn't flinch. He just leaned back, nodding once, the way you nod when the villain finally shows his face in an old noir flick. "Victor," Johnny repeated, testing the syllables like he was filing them away for later. "What's his last name?" Ethan's shoulders sagged deeper into the leather chair. I don't know. Everyone just calls him Victor. He's got a different last name every week. Tax forms, fake leases, all of it." Johnny raised an eyebrow. "Where'd you meet him?" Ethan's fingers drummed against his coffee cup, jittery. "Some cheap bar off Ventura. Year ago. I was behind on rent. My kid's mom was threatening to take Lila to her sister's in Reno. Victor found me in the parking lot after I tried." He stopped himself, looked away, tried to break into my own car, locked the keys inside. He laughed, bought me a drink, said I looked like a man who could use a shortcut. Johnny's jaw tensed, just for a second. And he pitched this brilliant plan? Fake accidents, quick payouts. For a moment, Ethan almost laughed, a dry, broken laugh that never made it past his lips. A few hours ago, he was just another desperate man tailing the wrong Cadillac. Now he was sitting across from Johnny Depp, hearing him say you're not alone like it was the simplest truth in the world. But nothing about this was simple. Johnny leaned forward, voice a rasp now. He won't know if you play it right. You've done it before. Do it again, but this time, I'm behind the wheel. Ethan's mind spun, the lobby lights too bright, the jazz too smooth for what they were plotting. Why would you even help me, he whispered. You could have just called the cops on me. Johnny's laugh was soft, almost bitter. I've seen too many Victors. Guys like that don't get what's coming to them because men like you think you're stuck. He locked eyes with Ethan. So close, so calm it almost hurt. You got one shot, Ethan. Do it for your kid. Or do it for yourself. Doesn't matter to me. But pick a side. Ethan's pulse thundered in his ears. His hands shook as he reached for his cup, stone cold now. But he didn't care. He looked at Johnny Depp, the man he tried to hustle, and nodded. Okay, Ethan whispered. A dangerous alliance, born over stale coffee. They left the hotel just past midnight. The lobby lights now a warm blur behind the glass doors. The street outside washed clean by hours of steady rain. Ethan's breath rose in thin clouds as they crossed the valet lane. Two men moving side by side, but miles apart in the life they'd lived. Johnny's car still sat at the curb, dented fender gleaming under a street lamp. A reminder. A promise. Ethan glanced at it. Then at Johnny, who was sliding on his gloves with that same quiet focus that made him look half like a rock star, half like a man about to break into somewhere he shouldn't. Where's Victor now? Johnny asked, his tone all business now, the softness gone. Ethan shoved his hands in his pockets, trying to look like he belonged on this sidewalk at this hour. He's got this back office behind a strip mall on Magnolia. Says it's a consulting firm. Really, it's just him, two of his muscle, and a safe he brags about when he's drunk. Tomorrow, he said, voice steady. You're gonna call him. Tell him you've got a mark. Big money. Ethan's mouth went dry. He's not stupid. He'll sniff it out. Johnny shot him a look sharp enough to slice through the fear. Then don't sell it like a lie. Sell it like you're scared. Sell it like you're desperate. Because you are. Ethan's knuckles tightened around the wheel. He saw Lila's face in his mind, her tiny hands pressed to the window when he left for another shady job. Okay, Ethan whispered. I'll do it. Johnny leaned back, eyes half closed, like he could already see the trap spring shut. And Ethan, Johnny said quietly, almost kindly, when this is over, you disappear. New town, new job, new name if you have to. Ethan stared through the windshield at the wet street, the neon open sign flickering across from them like an omen. And what about you? Ethan asked. Johnny cracked a tired smile, the kind that never reached his eyes. I'm exactly where I belong. The streetlight flickered above them. Two men in a broken car, planning something that would end one life and maybe save another. Ethan barely slept. He lay on his lumpy couch, still wearing yesterday's jacket, staring at the cracked ceiling while the city outside whispered threats through the rain. At 4 a.m., he checked on Lila, fast asleep in her tiny bed, hugging the ragged stuffed rabbit she wouldn't let go of, no matter how many times Ethan promised her a new one. She deserved better. He knew that now. Maybe he'd always known. By 7, he was in the kitchen, phone on the table, fingers drumming a nervous beat beside his cold coffee. Johnny's words echoed in his head. Sell it like you're scared. Because you are. He pulled up Victor's number. No fancy name in the contacts. Just V, like the whole mess could fit behind one letter. His thumb hovered over the call button. His gut twisted so hard he thought he'd be sick. Then he pressed it. 1 ring. 2. 3. He almost hung up. Then a click, and that familiar slick drawl slid through the speaker like oil on water. Ethan, Victor said. Just his name, like a dare. You better have something good for waking me up this early. Ethan swallowed, forcing a tremor into his voice. Not that he had to fake it much. Vic, listen, I got something. Big. Real big. A pause. Ethan could picture Victor, leaning against his chipped desk in that fake office, smirking with those snake's eyes that saw straight through lies if you blinked too slow. Keep talking. Ethan shifted, knuckles white around his coffee cup. Some big shot celebrity. Didn't want to say who over the phone? Rich. Private. Drives himself around town without security. I followed him a few times. He likes to keep things discreet. Another silence. He could hear Victor breathing, the low hum of cheap fluorescent lights in that back office. You trying to make up for last time, huh? Victor said, voice like a knife dull just enough to slip between ribs. Ethan's chest tightened. Yeah, I owe you. This'll make it right. He'll pay up quiet. No insurance. No cops. Victor chuckled, a soft, humorless sound. Where's the hit? Ethan's eyes flicked to the crumpled napkin beside him. Johnny's neat, careful scrawl. Old Steel Yard, 11 p.m. Steel Yard on Figueroa, Ethan said, his voice cracking just a little for good measure. Tonight. He drives that way alone. Real easy stop. Another pause. Longer this time. Ethan could practically see Victor's mind working, calculating risk, counting bills that weren't even in his hands yet. You screw me, Ethan, Victor said, his voice dropping to that low, poison whisper Ethan hated most. And you won't even see me coming. Ethan's throat was dry as dust. It's real, Vic. I swear. Click. The line went dead. Ethan set the phone down like it might explode. He sat there in the kitchen, heart slamming against his ribs, rain tapping at the window like a warning. Tonight it would happen. One way or another, Victor's game would end. The Steel Yard swallowed Ethan in shadows as he stepped away from his car, hands shoved deep in his jacket pockets like they could hide his shaking. His breath came out in ghostly wisps. Behind him, the gate creaked in the wind, a sound that made him flinch like a gun cocking. Victor spotted him first, that cold grin stretching across his face like a scar. Well, Victor called, his voice echoing off rusted metal beams and dead concrete. Look who finally learned how to answer his phone. Ethan forced his feet to keep moving, closing the gap one cautious step at a time. He could feel Johnny somewhere behind him, parked in the dark like a loaded gun. Two of Victor's men flanked him, big guys, faces half-lit in the wash of the pickup's headlights, hands never far from the lumps under their coats. Ethan raised his hands a little, palms out. Vic, it's all good, okay? He's coming. He's real. Big money, just like I said. Victor chuckled, low and amused, like a wolf circling a wounded deer. Is that so? Or are you trying to buy yourself another day to crawl under your rock? Ethan's throat bobbed. He wished he'd brought water, something to wet his tongue that felt glued to the roof of his mouth. It's real, he said. He'll be here any minute. Just be cool, all right? You get your cut, we walk away. One of Victor's men snorted, spit landing by Ethan's shoe. Victor stepped closer, close enough for Ethan to see the tiny scars on his jaw, the kind that didn't fade because men like Victor didn't live soft lives. You know what your problem is, Ethan? Victor asked softly, leaning in so his stale cologne made Ethan's stomach turn. You think you're the fox, but you're the rabbit. Always have been. Ethan's eyes darted to the side, caught Johnny's SUV, just a whisper of shadow between the stacks of shipping crates. Still there. Still waiting. I did what you asked, Ethan said, voice trembling more than he wanted. It's all gonna work out. Tonight fixes it. All of it. Victor smiled, the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. You think tonight fixes it? He let out a short laugh. Tonight, you're gonna pay me back with interest. He snapped his fingers. One of the goons stepped forward, reaching into his coat, and for a heartbeat Ethan thought this is it, until the man only pulled out a battered metal flask, unscrewing the cap with a grin. Victor slapped Ethan's cheek, not hard enough to hurt, just enough to remind him who was king here. Relax, rabbit, Victor sneered. Let's see your rich ghost, huh? Then maybe you limp home with your kneecaps still working. He turned, nodding at his men. They spread out, fanning through the yard, looking for headlights that hadn't shown yet. Ethan forced himself to breathe. He felt his phone vibrate once in his pocket. A text. Just 2 words. Showtime. Johnny was ready. Ethan's heart slammed against his ribs like it wanted out. Please, he begged silently. To the night, to the sky, to anything that still listened to men like him. Please work. The steel yard went so still that Ethan could hear the wind rattling loose sheets of metal somewhere deep in the maze of crates and beams. Victor's men were pacing now, circling wide, scanning the darkness for headlights that hadn't come yet. Then, a door creaked. Soft, deliberate, not the panicked slam of someone caught, but the calm click of a man stepping into his own story. Johnny Depp emerged from behind a stack of rusted shipping containers, the glow of a single overhead yard light catching the sharp edge of his jaw, the hint of silver in his hair. For a second, Victor's men froze, squinting at the silhouette. Ethan watched Victor's smirk flicker, confusion, then disbelief, then something close to recognition. Johnny didn't rush. He walked with that same easy grace that made him famous on screen, the lazy swagger, hands tucked into the deep pockets of his long black coat. When he got close enough, he stopped beside Ethan, shoulder to shoulder, like they were old friends meeting in a place that had forgotten what mercy looked like. Victor tilted his head, eyes narrowing. "Who the hell is this?" he barked, glancing back at his men for an answer no one had. Johnny just smiled. That half smile, soft at the corner of his mouth but cold in his eyes. "You wanted your ghost," Johnny said, voice low but cutting through the night like a blade. "Here I am." Victor's sneer twitched, confused, irritated. "You're the money?" he spat. "You look like a man you shouldn't have followed into the dark." Johnny cut in, tone still polite, almost friendly. He stepped closer, boots scraping grit. Ethan could feel the tension in Victor's guise, fingers inching toward holsters hidden in cheap jackets. Ethan swallowed hard, his mouth dry as bone. "Vic? He's good for it," Ethan stammered, trying to hold the center that was slipping fast. "He's got more than you asked for. Just take it and go." But Victor wasn't looking at Ethan anymore. His eyes flicked between Johnny's face and the familiar echo of a name he was starting to piece together from gossip and old headlines. "Wait a second," Victor's lip curled. He leaned in, squinting at Johnny's face, lit by the flickering yard lamp. "Is this a joke? You think I'm stupid? You bring me an actor?" He barked out a laugh, sharp and mean. "You trying to run some Hollywood charity scam on me, rabbit?" Johnny didn't flinch. Instead, he slipped his hand out of his pocket. Empty, but the calm in his eyes made every man watching lean back half a step. "No scam," Johnny said softly. "Just the truth, Victor." He said Victor's name like he'd known him for years, like he'd already weighed his sins and found them boring. Johnny's eyes flicked to Ethan, then back to Victor. "You came here for money," Johnny said, voice even. "But you brought the wrong wolves for this hunt." Victor's smile died. He spat at the dirt. "You think you scare me, movie star?" Johnny's smile flickered wider, but it didn't touch his eyes. "No," he said, the word gentle, final. "I know I do." Ethan felt it then, the shift, the balance tilting, the trap, teeth gleaming under the rust and shadows. Behind Victor's men, something moved, silent shapes stepping out from behind stacked crates and dead forklifts. Not cops, not gang muscle, Johnny's men, the real ones, the ones Ethan hadn't known existed until now. Victor turned just in time to see the barrels glint under the pale yard light. Not raised, not fired yet, but close enough to whisper a promise. Johnny stepped forward, his shadow stretching long and thin behind him. "It's over, Victor," he said, voice soft but ringing in the cold air. "You can go quietly, or you can stay here forever." Victor's breath puffed white in the dark, chest heaving. He didn't laugh this time. Ethan watched the moment click behind Victor's eyes, that tiny flash where even a man like him knows the night has turned its back for good. One heartbeat, then another. Then Victor reached for his pocket. Victor's hand hovered at his pocket, eyes flicking between Johnny's men and the barrel of a gun he'd never get to pull. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He could almost hear Lila's voice in his head. "You're gonna be okay, right, Daddy?" Johnny didn't move, didn't blink, just waited. Victor's lip curled. He was the kind of man who'd rather drag everyone into the dirt with him than lose alone. "Last chance," Johnny said softly, like he was asking him to step out for coffee, not offering him a choice between life and death. Victor sneered. His hand twitched deeper into his coat, and a single crack split the night. One of Johnny's men. A clean shot. Victor jerked back as if a string yanked him from the inside out, legs folding under him. He hit the concrete with a wet slap that seemed to echo forever in the hollow yard. Ethan flinched, but Johnny didn't even flinch. He just watched Victor's men drop their guns, some trying to run, others putting their hands up, faces pale under the sputtering yard lamp. The wind picked up, rattling loose metal like applause for a show no one wanted to see twice. Johnny turned to Ethan, really turned this time, eyes meeting his, no sunglasses to hide behind now. "This is what you wanted, right?" Johnny asked, voice low and tired, like they'd both been awake for years. Ethan couldn't find his words at first. His hands trembled at his sides, fists clenching and unclenching like they didn't know what to hold on to anymore. He looked past Johnny, past Victor's crumpled body, to the dark city waiting beyond the fence. "No," Ethan rasped, voice raw. I just wanted it to stop." Johnny nodded once, a slow, sad agreement between men who'd seen too much to believe in clean endings. "It stops tonight," Johnny said. "But you remember, you're still the one who called this play." Ethan didn't argue. He didn't beg or explain or say he was sorry. There was no point. One of Johnny's men handed him an envelope, fat with cash, or maybe promises. Ethan didn't even look inside. He just held it, feeling the weight of every lie, every mile he'd driven to get here. Johnny put a hand on his shoulder, just for a second, the briefest gesture of something like mercy or maybe pity. "Go home," Johnny said quietly. "Be better than this." And then Johnny turned away, walking back into the dark where his people swallowed him up, shadows folding back into shadows, leaving only the echo of a name that Ethan would never forget again. Ethan stumbled back to his car, the yard shrinking behind him, Victor's ghost already fading in the rearview mirror. He drove through the sleeping city with Lila's stuffed rabbit in the passenger seat, his knuckles white on the wheel. When he pulled into Diane's driveway, dawn was just breaking, soft and pink and undeserved. Inside, Lila would be dreaming under a blanket that smelled like home. He'd pick her up, hold her tight, promise her the world again, this time hoping maybe, just maybe, he'd mean it. Because sometimes the only thing a man like Ethan has left is the choice to stand between his child and the darkness that made him. In the end, Johnny Depp disappeared back into the world that eats secrets for breakfast. And Ethan? He drove his daughter away from the steelyard ghosts, into a sunrise that might never forgive him, but at least would keep its mouth shut. Thank you for listening. If you want more raw, untold stories like this, subscribe and turn on notifications. Until next time, hold your secrets close, and your second chance is closer.